Blessings to you, our friends. We are the Ancestral Medicine Women, healing from the past for the present and the future. Everybody is aware that they have something within them that makes them sometimes not a very nice person. Right? Lots of people try to squash this because they don't like that person. They don't like that way of being. And they don't like what they say, they don't like the way it comes out, all of these types of things. And it is like they sometimes think it is not them. It is something else that is making this happen, right? And we want to give that a name. We want to give that little other person that is within inside people that makes them say and do things that they don't really like about themselves. We want to give it a name. We're going to give it the name of goblin. Because the idea of a goblin is something that is not quite nice, has a mind of its own though, right, and will do its own thing, and is not going to be told by society what is right and what is wrong. It's quite strong, right, but it's a little bit ugly. In fact, it's quite ugly. A goblin is not an attractive elemental, right, it doesn't have that image of being attractive, and also naughty and mischievous. So we'll come out and we'll do things knowing that trouble will be caused. Right? That's why we're going to call this side of human beings that they don't quite like the goblin. But what we want to suggest is that the goblin is not a bad side of you. It's not this ugly individual that lives within you. The goblin is actually something that is kept inside you, something that you don't like, as we have said, and you don't like to be represented as, and you don't like to give to the world. But is actually more than that, a confusion. It's a confusion of ideas, of thoughts, of hurts, of dramas, of situations, of incidents that are all put aside because you don't want to deal with them. You don't want to have to face them. You don't want to have to acknowledge them. So you put them all aside and they become confused with each other because they're not in separate compartments. Because you are upset by it, by whatever it is, or you have been hurt by it, you're not going to say, oh, that belongs in the compartment of hurts, and that belongs in the compartment of anger. You don't, because you don't want to have to deal with it. So what you do is you just push it all aside into the same place. And the same place is what we call your goblin. That's what it is. And because you just push it in there and you don't deal with it, and you don't acknowledge it, and you don't want to know about it, and you don't want to express it, it all just gets pushed in there, uncognized, unthought of, undealt with, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's all just pushed in there. And that's why it becomes the goblin. Because the goblin then has a lot of ammunition. Nothing is dealt with. Nothing is talked about. Nothing is acknowledged. So now there's lots of mischief that can happen there. It's all in there. It's all swirling around in this confusion, mixing itself up. And then the goblin just gets stronger and stronger and has all this ammunition. So much mischief can be made because it has a lot of knowledge. A lot of knowledge that you don't even want to know about. Right? You don't want other people to know about it, and you certainly don't want to know about it. But it has all of this knowledge. And what is knowledge but power? That's what it is. And when the knowledge and power and mischief and confusion become so great, it actually has some control over the way you act. It has some control over the way, what you say and the way you do things. And you don't like that. You don't like that about yourself, and you certainly don't want everybody else to know. So what do? You take all of that and you push it back again. And what does it do? It's more, and it's bigger, and it's more confused, and it's more swirling, and this goblin is getting more and more strength. So it causes more problems in your life. You see what's happening here. You see this catch-22 situation is like this circle. It is never going to end unless what? Unless you take some positive action. And what is the simplest way to take some positive action? It's to take the goblin for a walk. Take the goblin for a walk. You go with the goblin, so you are there and the goblin is with you. And you can control this situation. So the goblin is not running mischief, running riot and causing problems for you. You are actually going to take the goblin for a walk, let some of this out, and then you're going to say, that is enough now, back you go. We will reconvene next week at the same time, something like that. So how can you take your goblin for a walk without causing trouble? without embarrassing yourself, without making upsets for other people and for yourself? Well, there are lots of different ways. Some people, they do some sort of very aggressive and violent sport, like boxing, or they go shooting, or they might just do something that really gets all of their energy out, like dancing with really loud, aggressive music, so they can really feel that anger and aggression coming out within them. Some people, though, physical activities like that's not what they want. They need to be able to voice it. They need to be able to express it. So, what do you have to do? Maybe you have to create a very safe environment with somebody that you know. And you say, whatever comes out of my mouth, I don't mean it. I don't mean it. It's just that I have to let it out. I don't want you to take it personally. But maybe if you can't find that situation, maybe you have to go to some professional, a counselor or something like that. And you say the same thing to them. I need to let all of this out, but I don't want you to take it personally. It's nothing to do with you. And the very important thing here is that what comes out of your mouth is actually not necessarily what you think. That's important to remember, and will stop you from feeling bad about what comes out, because as more goes into your goblin and becomes more and more confused, that means the thoughts become confused. All that information is all whirling around, whizzing around, causing different thoughts to happen, but they're not necessarily what you really think. So that's why you get upset when these goblins come out in an uncontrolled situation, because that's actually not what you think, but you think, that must be what I think. I'm a terrible person. I'm a horrible person. But it's not actually what you think. It's just that there's all this confusion, and it's all whirling around, spinning around with the crisscrossing of the thoughts. So when it does come out, sometimes it sounds like absolute rubbish. It doesn't mean anything. You can't understand why you would think that way, because you're not actually thinking that way. That is why when you are in situations where maybe you need to verbalize it, you say, it's not what I think. It's not who I am. It's just that I need to get it out. And the more you can do this, the more you can let this goblin go and take the goblin for a walk in these controlled situations, the more you will gain control over yourself, the more you will see yourself for who you really are. And the less and less the goblin needs to come out, the less and less the goblin has anything to come out about, because you are actually letting that energy flow. And that is what this is all about. The goblin is just energy that you are bottling up and you are keeping in a secret place because you don't want anybody to know. But letting the goblin come out, letting them take a walk, you are letting that energy flow and to be released.